Oh, listen, man, I got all the time in the world here.
Okay.
Listen, I
All
can't
right.
really think of anything more fun than what we're doing right now. So,
I'm totally having a blast. This is my jam. All right. Number 15. It is okay to accept something is true because it is comforting.
yeah, we can almost go. Well, again, accepting it as true. Like I say, I think it's probably okay to have certain assumptions that work for you psychologically, as long as they don't cause problems in other dimensions. So again, I think that's a little too vague. Under certain circumstances, that might be, I might agree with that. And probably under most circumstances, I would disagree with it.
What is an example of a situation where you would disagree with this?
Okay. Well, say it again. Let me hear the statement again.
It is okay to accept something is true because it is comforting. And I was prepared to replace true with accurate.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
But
thinking.
you can use whichever
Well, whatever. Yeah,
translation.
yeah. There may be some other way too, but I'm thinking it has to do with maybe emotional situations rather than factual situations. I mean, relationships, love relationships, friendship relationships. Maybe in that kind of a situation, you might give somebody the benefit of the doubt, or something.
Hmm.
Yeah, accepting is true has some sort of finality to it, also. That, and everything is always tenuous to me. Well, everything, most things are tenuous to me. So there's my response at the moment, and tomorrow, who knows? I might feel very differently about something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can you think of a specific situation in which you would disagree with this?
Uh, and again, the statement is to accept it
It is
true because it makes me feel good, right?
it is okay to accept something is true because it is comforting.
Yeah. And you want a case where that's uh,
Where you would say it is
where I
not okay.
disagree. Yeah. Well, like I say, in factual situations as opposed to emotional situations, I would say that's not a good way to proceed. It's better to just say, I don't know. Again, I'm very comfortable with I don't know.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
strikes me as a really good first approximation in almost any situation, is to
Uh-huh.
just I don't know. Let's look and see.
Like a default position.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Just accepting something because it makes me feel better. Like I say, that might be appropriate in some emotional things as a temporary strategy, maybe, or I don't know. Generally, I don't like that idea.
To accept something as true because it's
Yeah,
comforting.
yeah, to make you feel better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like I say, I can see that there may be cases where that might be appropriate, but like I say, just generally speaking, I would disagree with that.
Okay. Are you comfortable sharing a specific case where you would agree with it?
Well, I'm trying to think of one. Like I say, I'm just sort of leaving the door open. I actually can't think
Sure.
of one off the top of my head where that might be appropriate. But like I say, I suspect it might have something to do with human relations and stuff, not like scientific facts and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So in therapy, maybe, or who knows? But I can't think of anything offhand.
I can think of something that we could explore with this,
Okay.
if you're up for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Listen, this is your game, man. I'm here to play. So.
let let's say I'm sitting in on my back patio with a friend who just lost their loved one, like they died,
Yeah.
and we see a butterfly or a hummingbird, and my friend is convinced that the hummingbird is or is a sign from the recently deceased loved
Mm,
one,
yeah.
and is it okay to accept that that is true because
For
it's
who?
comforting?
For me to accept it, or for the person whose loved one died?
Either way, either one,
Well,
we
yeah, yeah. Well, again, if it's some temporary passing thing, a thought in his head, yeah, so what? If it turns into some sort of belief system that that hummingbird that day, that was my wife. I know it, and she came back to give me a message,
right.
and he holds on to that analysis. And again, it may go no deeper than that. It may be just some trivial, silly idea that's in his head that has no real impact on his life. But to me, I mean, that's delusional. But it may be insignificant too.
Hmm.
So I guess that's the question: is whether it's a significant delusion or not. I
Yeah,
mean,
like if
if it doesn't interfere with his life or make him crazy, so what?
yeah. It, could that way of thinking be harmful?
Well, like I say, if you get locked into the story, it could be. I don't know how, but I mean, if you had a good screenwriter, I suppose you could find a way to make that really tragic.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, like I say, in a moment of grief, a thought enters your mind, the hummingbird, that's actually my wife coming back to say goodbye or something or other. And you may have some cathartic response, and that could be wonderful. And then the next day, if it's gone and you don't think about it ever again, or maybe you do and you think that was an interesting experience I had,
Yeah.
you know, or it could turn into some sort of obsession,
Yeah.
in which case it probably is not a good idea.
Or like they're in heaven right now, and they're telling me that they're okay and I'm gonna see them again soon or something.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, since uh, this is weird because my some of my ideas have changed dramatically in the last decade or so, and for one thing, I don't just dismiss automatically the concept of real magic because I don't. I mean, I've never seen anything like that, but on the other hand, I can't just dismiss it out of hand because I really don't know the ultimate nature of reality. And maybe there is such a thing as real magic, speaking something into existence or something. I've never seen that. And also the idea, like I had a really shitty relationship with my mother, and but I've come to terms with that in the last decade or so, and I have great respect for her now. And I keep thinking, well, wouldn't it be interesting if when you die, you actually get to meet up with these people and have a good laugh, over all the stupidity that we involved ourselves with.
Hmm.
And I don't just dismiss that out of hand. I mean, I don't know what's actually possible or what's not. I mean, the whole universe is very mysterious to me, and that possibility strikes me as, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't believe it or anything, but well, maybe.
Is it admirable to assume that that could be a possibility without any evidence?
Well, there's certainly no evidence for it, except the stories, that
Yeah.
we all hear. I mean, I guess you can call that a sort of evidence, the stories that are floating around and the Bible and all the Christian stuff about heaven and, you know, again, admirable doesn't strike me as a useful word here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, like I say, I find, well, I don't know. I don't know how I even feel about the possibility of meeting up with my mother in some other dimension. The whole idea of identity and, well, the whole idea of the fucking universe, man, is such a mysterious thing that, who's to say what's really going on here and whether whatever it is that's looking through my eyes and looking through your eyes and looked through my mother's eyes and my dog's eyes, who knows what kind of persistent patternings there might be somehow in some other dimension or other. I don't know. I just don't know. So I don't
Hmm.
dismiss anything. Like I say, there's a part of me who even admits that, well, shit, maybe the Christians are actually right. I mean, it's a pretty small, bet. I wouldn't put much on that. But I mean, I can't say 100% for sure
Hmm.
that the Christians or the Muslims or any of them are wrong. They seem absurd to me. But, I don't know
You're
everything.
open to the possibility of being mistaken about it.
Yeah, I may end up at the pearly gates getting sent to hell. I'm going to be pissed if I am. But, fuck you. You should have made it more clear.
Yeah, you're punishing me for not having good reasons to
Yeah, you
believe
gave
it.
me a brain and now you're going to punish me and burn me in hell forever
For
for
using
using
it.
it. Yeah, well, fuck you. But like
Yeah.
I say, I mean, I can't just completely and absolutely say for sure that that's not true.
Hmm.
I don't give it much thought, though. I'll tell you, I don't worry about it.
Yeah. We may have talked about this before, but I think that you and I agree that that there could be an objective reality out there
Yeah,
that we don't have
well,
access
there
to.
probably is, but
Yeah, yeah, that there
I just
probably
can't.
is
Yeah,
that we may not have access to, or
right.
that we probably don't have access to, right?
Yeah.
Right. So my question about that is, do you think that there are more reliable ways to get closer to that than others?
Well, drugs have been a part of my life, so that's always interesting. You know. Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
let me rephrase it. So say we're trying to figure out if something is accurate or not. And
Well,
I
for
guess I'm
instance,
asking
wait a minute.
is
Wait, something is accurate.
a,
Like for
a,
instance,
a, a statement is accurate about the world that we share, say.
okay, some factual statement that Jimmy actually shot the shopkeeper.
Right, right. So if we're trying to figure that out, do you think that there are more reliable ways than others to get closer to that um, the accuracy of that?
Well, I think science is the best story we've come up with in that domain, and the legal system. I mean, in this case, the legal system and science. Those are. I think the best methodologies that we've come up with so far. There may be others, but I don't know of them.
Hmm.
What about
Okay.
you?
Yeah, I think that there are better ways than others, or more reliable ways than others to get closer
Well,
to
but what's the best? What's the best we have?
the best that we have so far that we know of.
Well, that's all I can talk about.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Scientific methods um, are, as far as we know, the most reliable ways to get as close to that
Yeah,
uh, accuracy about the natural world
yeah. We
that,
just have
yeah.
to add the word so far.
Right, right, right. Yeah, because there could be better ways out there
Yeah,
that we haven't discovered yet.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in agreement on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting if we can find an area where we're in disagreement. We ought to be searching for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I that's definitely more entertaining, more thought provoking.
Well, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we can. Well, that's why I want
Hmm.
you and I both to answer these questions and
Yeah.
see if we. I mean, so far we're in agreement. So
I would say generally, the more that we talk, the more we find out how much we agree, I
yeah,
think.
how intelligent you are.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I would say I think one place that there might be the most daylight between us, and I'm open to talking more about it so that we end up finding out that we actually agree more than I think, is uh I from what I understand from us talking before, that personal experience is something that you would say that's all we really have to go off of.
Well, and the
Um,
stories we have personal experience, and then we have the stories that we've
yeah,
inherited or come up with about the personal experience. Yeah.
yeah. And I guess I would say that I wouldn't put personal experience as um
Well,
as a reliable.
actually let me change that phrase because I wouldn't call it personal experience. I'd just call it sensory experience.
Okay.
Personal is a story.
Yeah.
So I would say
Well,
we.
it's all stories, right?
Well, no, it's all sensory experience. Even the stories come to us through our senses. I read them as words on paper or on a screen, or I hear them through my ears. But the stories all boil down to sensory experience.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is there's sensory experience, and then
Well,
there's the stories that we make up based on that sensory
yes,
experience.
but those stories come to us through sensory experience.
Right. Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
So,
there's
so
there's
it
this
maybe there are
foundation.
two kinds. There may be two kinds of sensory experience. There's sensory experience like what I see or feel or touch and all that. But then there's this other weird kind. I was like, I hear the dog barking outside and a car driving by or thunder last night. I hear all that, but then when I hear your voice, something entirely different happens. I mean,
Mm,
language, it comes to me through my ears, and yet it's somehow remarkably different than all the other noises that come into my ears.
hmm.
And I really don't know what to do with that yet. I'm still trying to figure out how to even talk about that. Because really, all the stories are just more sensory experience. That's really all I ever have is, well, experience. Yeah, that's it. Except
Hmm.
some of it is in this domain of language that's really weirdly different somehow than all the other experiences that I have.
Hmm. Could it be that pattern seeking part of us that has helped us to survive as a species, to recognize patterns, and language being that pattern that our brain recognizes easily, sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes not.
My sense is that language is an emergent property of our navigation system. That any
Hmm.
animal that lives in a hole in the ground or a nest in a tree, and explores an environment has to have a way to navigate. Has to find its way back to its hole in the ground after a hard day's foraging.
Yeah, yeah, we
And
talked about this,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and I mentioned that the Native Americans being recruited to track, and then they lost their ability to track after they made them shave their heads because they basically joined the army.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Who knows what's going on? I mean, there's so many mysteries
Yeah.
about all this stuff, you know.
Well, back to what I was saying about experience, I guess I'm saying that experience isn't as reliable as we might sometimes think it is.
Oh,
Like,
well, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, completely in agreement with this because when you're saying it's unreliable, you're saying that our experience doesn't necessarily represent any objective reality. That
right, like if the goal is for my conclusions to be as accurate as possible, like, experience I don't think is as reliable as we sometimes think it is or might
yeah.
be.
Well, again, see that's assuming that our experience is of some objective reality.
Hmm.
See, but if you do away with the objective reality, then your experience is just your experience. It may pay off or it may not.
Yeah.
But well, anyway, I well go ahead because I think we're probably in agreement, but I'm just being a little picky about this.
Yeah, and this might be another example of the more we talk about it, the more we find out that we actually don't have that
Yeah.
much daylight.
No, no,
But
it's clear,
an
yeah,
ex
that our experience we can be absolutely deluded, you know.
right, and so that's what causes me to think twice about coming to a conclusion based on an experience I had.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Well,
An
again,
example,
yeah, go ahead.
uh, yeah, an example that I usually share about this is um, like if I go to the drive-through coffee stand, and I buy a $3 coffee with a $10 bill, and they give me $17 back, I would say something like, "Well, wait a second, you gave me too much change. I gave you a 10."
Yeah.
And they say, "No, actually, you gave us a 20. It was my experience that I gave them a 10,
Right.
but
Yeah.
my experience was not accurate in in
Yeah.
in in relation to the objective reality
Well,
that."
again, your story is not compatible with their story. Whether what really goes on, well, I don't need to know that, but they're telling you a different story, and
Yeah, and
it's not
the
compatible with
security
their.
camera is telling us that I in fact gave them a 20, where in
Right.
my
Yeah.
experience, I
Yeah.
experienced giving them a 10.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would probably rely on the information I got from the
Well,
security
especially since
camera.
you're $10 ahead.
Well, actually, I think most people just drive away. But
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Right.
but
Thinking, aha,
I
I
would
got
rely
you.
on
Yeah.
yeah, I think the information I would get from the security camera, even though that could be wrong too,
It
is
could
more
be.
reliable than my
I agree with
experience.
you completely. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, but again, this is all within this sort of narrow domain because ultimately, like I say, the whole thing is so mysterious that stuff like this is sort of trivial. But yeah, I agree with you completely in this case. If I saw the camera and they insisted I gave them a 20 and they showed me the 20, I'd say, okay, well, obviously I was deluded. I wasn't paying attention to something. I was paying
Well,
for
yeah, and
the
that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
$10 in this case could be benign,
Yeah.
but 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 there are cases where people are relying on their experience and they're making some decisions that impact the rest of us
Yeah.
in big ways.
Yeah. Like
So
a cop
I
with
think
a
it's
gun.
important. I think it's important to understand that experience isn't necessarily a reliable way to come to an accurate conclusion about the world that we share.
Well, when you say accurate, see, that's where I part company with you. because,
Well,
but,
I'm using
but I
accurate, so
agree with
I
you.
have to use the word true.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no. Well, like I say, I'm in agreement with you.
It's
Like
like
say,
the
like
Hydra.
like all the cops, that are shooting all these black people, and you look at the circumstances, and the cop says, "Well, I was threatened. He had a gun," and then you look at the camera, and the guy didn't have a gun, but
Yeah,
he had his wallet in his hand,
yeah,
or something, and but the cop saw a gun,
yeah. That
and
was their experience.
yeah, 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 absolutely. So yeah, it's all tricky business for sure.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to go on to the next one?
Oh, listen, man, I got all the time in the world here.
Okay.
Listen, I
All
can't
right.
really think of anything more fun than what we're doing right now. So,
I'm totally having a blast. This is my jam.
yeah,
I love,
yeah,
especially with a conversation partner like you, because you're not closed-minded about stuff like this. Like, I can
yeah,
tell that you like to take the time to think about this and and walk through it. So
yeah,
I appreciate that. And I
yeah,
hope that you get that from from me
yeah,
too,
yeah,
'cause I
absolutely.
would
Yeah.